Before kingdoms learned to draw borders, before fire was taught to conquer, before steel believed it could command the wind, there was only the steppe, endless and unforgiving. The golden grass stretched beneath an open sky that recognized no throne. Here, survival was not won by walls or crowns, but by movement, memory, and breath. The wind was not an enemy, it was a guide. The land did not belong to its people. The people endured because the land allowed them to. Among these plains, legends were not written. They were carried on horseback, in song, in the cry of the eagle overhead. It was said that when the steppe itself faced imbalance, when fire sought dominion and steel forgot humility, the sky would answer not with thunder, but with choice. A single child would be marked not to rule, not to conquer, but to listen. For the golden eagle does not choose kings, it chooses witnesses. And on a dawn, when the grass bent in an unfamiliar wind, when the sun rose like molten steel along the horizon, the ancient oath of the steppe was spoken again, without voice, without flame. The age of singular power was ending. The wind was about to be shared, and the steppe, patient as eternity, was watching. Chapter 1. The Cry of the Golden Eagle. At dawn, dawn broke across the Kazakh steppe like a blade drawn slowly from its sheath. The grasslands stretched without endan, ocean of gold and pale amber, bending beneath the breath of ancient winds. The sky, vast and unbroken, carried the colors of fire and steel, crimson at the horizon, cold blue above. It was an hour when spirits still walked freely, when the old pacts between sky and earth had not yet faded. In the hollow between two low hills, a child stood alone. His name was Arslan. He was no more than 12 winters old, slight in frame, wrapped in a patched felt coat far too thin for the morning cold. Frost clung to the grass at his feet, yet he did not shiver. His dark eyes were fixed on the rising sun, as if he were listening to something no one else could hear. Then the wind changed. It did not come gently, as it usually did on the steppe. This wind descended with purpose sharp, spiraling, alive. The grasses flattened in its wake. The air vibrated, humming like a drawn bowstring. Arslan felt it strike his chest. Not pain, recognition. Above him, a shadow crossed the light. The cry came next, deep, piercing, and ancient. It cut through the silence of dawn like iron through silk. The golden eagle had arrived. Its wingspan blotted out the sun for a heartbeat. Feathers, the color of burnished gold, caught the fire of morning, each plume edged with dark bronze. Its eyes were not the eyes of a beast, they were the eyes of judgment, old as the steppe itself. The eagle circled once, twice, then it descended. Arslan fell to one knee, not from fear, but from the weight of something vast pressing down upon him, an unseen presence, immense and deliberate. The earth beneath him trembled faintly, as though answering the descent. The eagle landed on a stone outcrop before him. At that instant, the ground cracked. A thin line of light split the stone, glowing white-hot, then gold. Heat surged upward. Arslan recoiled as the stone fractured completely, revealing something buried long before memory had names. A blade. It lay embedded in the earth, metal untouched by rust or time. The steel shimmered as though sunlight had been forged into form, veins of radiant gold running through darker alloy. The air around it warped, bending with heat and power. Sunsteel, the metal of oaths, the metal of kings and ruin. Every child of the steppe knew the stories, whispered around winter fires, and spoken only in half phrases. Sunsteel was not mined. it was awakened. It rose only when the old winds demanded payment for broken vows. Arslan had never believed the stories until now. The eagle tilted its head, regarding him. Then it spoke not in words, but in wind. Images flooded Arslan's mind. Riders swallowed by sandstorms, banners burning beneath a blackened sky, cities of fabric and steel torn apart by fire from the heavens. He saw tribes once bound by blood, now turned against one another, blades raised under different suns. At the center of every vision was the steppe itself, bleeding. The eagle's talons struck the ground. Arslan felt something answer inside him. Without knowing why, he reached forward. The moment his fingers touched the hilt, pain exploded through his body, white, blinding, absolute. The metal burned, not his skin, but something deeper. His breath tore from his lungs. He screamed, and the scream echoed far beyond the hills. Across the steppe, men and women froze. In distant camps, elders dropped their cups. Horses reared, snorting in terror. Falcons screamed and tore free from their perches. And in the city of winds, where towers of canvas and steel rose in concentric circles, the great sky bells began to ring without being touched. Arslan did not release the blade. The pain transformed. Heat became strength. Light became clarity. Symbols ignited along the blade's length, old runes, shaped like wings, spirals, and suns split by lightning. The steel drank the dawn, glowing brighter with every heartbeat. The golden eagle spread its wings. Its cry thundered across the steppe. This time, it was not a call. It was a declaration. By midday, riders were already moving. From the western plains came the Ashtamga clan, their armor dark, their banners marked with scorched symbols. They had long worshipped fire and believed the steppe must be ruled through burning and rebirth. From the north rode the White Gale tribes, swift and silent, masters of wind horses and sky tactics. They believed the old balance must be preserved at any cost, heaven, if that meant killing the chosen. Far to the south, in hidden valleys of red stone, the Sunforger priests awakened from generations of silence. Their furnaces roared to life for the first time in a century, sensing the return of the metal they alone claimed to understand. And above them all, unseen but never absent, the wind gathered. It carried an oath older than nations. When sunsteel rises, the eagle chooses. When the eagle chooses, the steppe must burn or be reborn. Arslan stood alone on the hill as the day wore on, the blade now cool in his hand, impossibly light. The golden eagle remained beside him, watching the horizon. "Why me?" Arslan whispered. The wind answered softly, wrapping around him like a cloak. "Because you were born between fires. Because your blood remembers the sky. Because the steppe has no more time." In the far distance, dust clouds rose thin at first, then multiplying. Armies were forming. Banners were being unfurled. Old alliances were breaking even as new ones were sworn. The war of wind and fire had begun, and at its heart stood a child, a blade of sunsteel, and the unblinking gaze of the golden eagle at dawn. Chapter 2. The Oath. Beneath the endless sky by nightfall, the steppe no longer felt empty. Arslan sensed it before he saw it, the way the wind thickened, the way the grass leaned not merely from weather, but from attention. The golden eagle remained on the hilltop with him, silent and immovable, a living standard against the darkening sky. Its presence pressed outward, like a warning sent across leagues. The sun had sunk, but the blade in Arslan's hand still glimmered faintly, catching starlight that had not yet fully emerged. He wrapped it in cloth torn from his coat, instinctively hiding what he did not yet understand. Then came the sound of hooves, not the thunder of war riders. These were cautious, measured steps, 3 horses, no more. Arslan turned, heart hammering, feet braced in the grass. From the darkness rose figures cloaked in pale felt and wind-worn leather. Their horses were lean, long-legged, bred for distance rather than charge. At their head rode a woman with silver braided through black hair, her posture straight despite the long ride. She raised one open hand. "Do not run," she called. The sky would not allow it. Arslan did not move. The golden eagle shifted its wings. The riders halted instantly. The woman dismounted slowly, eyes never leaving the eagle. She lowered her head, not in submission, but in acknowledgement. "It has been 3 generations," she said quietly. "Longer than I hoped." She looked at Arslan, then, truly seeing him for the first time. Her gaze softened, sharpened, weighed him all at once. "My name is Aghanim, keeper of winds for the White Gale tribes," she said. "And you, child, are standing on ground that no longer belongs to you alone." Arslan swallowed. "I didn't ask for this." Aghanim nodded. "None of the chosen ever do." She gestured toward the horizon, where distant fires already marked moving camps. They felt it, all of them. The sun steel does not wake quietly. At the mention of the blade, the eagle released a low sound, not a cry, but a warning. Agan raised her hands again, palms outward. "We come to bind an oath," she said, "not to take what the eagle has claimed." Behind her, the 2 other riders dismounted. One was old, his face cut by a lifetime of wind. The other was scarcely older than Arslan himself, eyes wide with a mixture of fear and awe. The old man carried a staff crowned with wind chimes fashioned from bone and bronze. As he struck it once against the ground, the air shimmered faintly. "The sky listens," he murmured. Aghanim knelt. It was not a gesture of obedience, it was a declaration of responsibility. The other 2 followed, kneeling in the grass beneath the open heavens. "We swear by the endless sky," Aghanim said, voice steady, "to guard the chosen until he understands the weight of the wind upon his shoulders." Arslan felt the oath settle like a mantle around Issyk-Kul, firm, undeniable. The golden eagle inclined its head. The oath was accepted. Only then did Aghanim rise. "You must leave this hill," she said. "By dawn, it will be ringed by those who believe fire answers only to force." Arslan looked toward the darkness, where the dust clouds had faded but not disappeared. "The Ashtamga, yes," Aghanim replied, "and others, worse. The Sunforger priests will move soon. They will claim you as a relic, not a person." "I don't want to be any of those things," Arslan said. "Want has little power now," the old man said gently. "But choice still does." They rode through the night. The steppe revealed itself differently after sunset, more intimate. The wind whispered instead of roared. Stars burned fiercely, unchallenged by mountains or walls. Aghanim rode beside Arslan, matching his pace, speaking only when the wind allowed. "You were born near the Salt River," she said. "Your mother sang to the sky while she worked." Arslan stiffened. "How do you know that?" "Because the wind remembers," she answered. "And because your mother once stood where you stand, now close to something she refused." He turned sharply. "She was chosen." "No," Aghanim said, "she was tested. There is a difference." They stopped before dawn at a shallow basin where the grass bent inward, forming a natural shelter. The old man laid stones in a circle, murmuring as he worked. The younger rider lit a small, smokeless fire. Aghanim faced Arslan across the flames. Sunsteel responds to oaths, she said, not commands, not bloodlines, oaths. She gestured for him to place the blade between them. Reluctantly, Arslan unwrapped it. The fire flared brighter. Runes along the blade's spine stirred, glowing like embers stirred by breath. You will swear, Aghanim continued, not to us, but to the sky itself, to carry the steel without surrendering yourself to it. Arslan hesitated. And if I refuse, then the wind will find another path, she said, and the steppe will bleed until it does. Silence stretched. Above them, the stars seemed closer, sharper. Arslan knelt. He placed one hand on the earth, the other on the hilt. I swear, he said, voice trembling but unbroken, to listen before I strike. To remember, the steppe is not mine to rule, only to protect. The blade pulsed once. The wind surged, circling the basin in a swift, invisible ring. Far away, something screamed in fury. Aghanim exhaled slowly. It has begun. As dawn approached, the golden eagle descended from the sky once more, settling behind Arslan. Its wings framed him, vast and unyielding. In the east, smoke rose dark, thick, deliberate. The Ashtamga were burning their path forward, and somewhere beneath the steppe, deeper sunsteel veins stirred, answering the call of oath and fire alike. Arslan stood beneath the endless sky, no longer alone, yet farther from childhood than he had ever imagined. The wind was no longer asking, it was waiting. Chapter 3, Riders of Wind and Shadow. The steppe awoke to smoke. Arslan smelled it before he saw it bitter, oily, wrong. It crawled low along the grass, carried by a wind that no longer whispered but hissed. Dawn had barely touched the horizon when Aghanim rose, already armored in layered leather and pale steel, her movements sharp with urgency. They are closer than the wind predicted, she said. The basin emptied in moments. The fire was scattered, the stones overturned. No trace remained except flattened grass and fading warmth. The white Gale riders mounted without ceremony, and Arslan found himself lifted onto a spare, horse-swift gray mare with eyes like polished stone. The golden eagle did not fly ahead. It circled above them instead. That alone told Aghanim everything. They hunt you now, she said quietly to Arslan. Not the steel, not the omen, you. They rode eastward, cutting across shallow ridges where the land rose and fell like the backs of sleeping beasts. Behind them, smoke thickened, and with it came the distant sound of Hornslow, brutal calls that tore at the air. Ashtamga war horns. They burn as they advance, the old man said, gripping his staff. They always have. Fire announces dominance. Aghanim spat into the grass. Her fire also blinds. The ground ahead shimmered faintly, the air bending in subtle waves. Aghanim raised her fist, and they halted at once. Before them lay a narrow stretch of land where the grass grew shorter, pressed flat as if by countless passing feet. Arslan felt a pull there, an unnatural stillness, as though the wind itself held its breath. A windscar, Aghanim said. Old battlefield, the sky remembers violence. She looked at Arslan. You will feel many places like this now. Do not ignore them. They crossed quickly. The moment Arslan's horse stepped onto the scarred ground, the blade at his side thrummed beneath its wrappings. Heat bled through the cloth, not painful, but insistent. Images flickered at the edge of his vision. Riders clashing, banners torn, blood darkening dust. he gasped. Aghanim caught his arm. "Stay with us." The visions faded as they cleared the scar. The wind resumed its flow, and Arslan sucked in air as if surfacing from deep water. Before he could speak, the golden eagle screamed. Not a declaration, a warning. From the northern ridge came movement, fast, silent, disciplined. Riders emerged as if born from the grass itself, cloaked in muted tones of gray and sky blue. Their horses ran without sound, hooves barely touching the earth. Wind riders, white gale scouts, but not Aghanim's. She swore softly. Skybound faction. The riders formed a loose crescent, bows already drawn. At their center rode a man in pale armor, etched with swirling patterns, his helm crowned with thin streamers that fluttered constantly, even against the wind's direction. "Keeper Aghanim," he called. "You ride with a storm you cannot contain." She rode forward alone, chin high, Talget skybound, still mistaking obedience for balance. His eyes slid to Arslan. The eagle disagrees. A tense silence followed. The golden eagle descended slightly, wings spread wide, casting its shadow over both parties. Talgot dismounted. "You carry sunsteel," he said to Arslan, voice measured. "That alone makes you dangerous." "I didn't choose it," Arslan replied. "Neither does lightning choose where it strikes," Talgot said. "Yet we still guided away from our homes." Aghanim stiffened. "You would cage him. We would contain him," Talgot countered. "Before the Ashtamga reach him. Before the Sunforger priests carve him into scripture." Behind them, the distant horns sounded again, closer now. The steppe was closing in. Talgot studied Arslan for a long moment. "Ride with us to the sky circle. There the winds can judge him properly." "And if the judgment is death," Aghanim asked, "then the steppe is spared a war." The words struck harder than any blade. Arslan felt the sunsteel stir violently, heat surging against his side. "No," he said. Both leaders turned to him. "I won't be judged like an animal," Arslan continued, forcing his voice steady. "The eagle chose me, not you." For the first time, uncertainty flickered across Talgot's face. The golden eagle let out a low, resonant cry. The wind answered. It surged without warning, slamming into the skybound riders, ripping cloaks and tearing arrows from boughs. Horses reared as the gust twisted unpredictably, circling Arslan like a living wall. Aghanim stared. "He didn't command it." "I didn't mean to," Arslan whispered. The wind did not harm the white gale riders. It recognized them. Talgot raised an arm, signaling retreat. "This changes nothing," he said sharply. "The Ashtamga will not stop." And when fire meets wind uncontrolled, he did not finish. The skybound riders withdrew, melting back into the grass as swiftly as they had appeared. The wind calmed. Arslan's knees buckled. Aghanim caught him before he fell. "You are not just chosen," she said softly. "You are answered." They rode hard after that. By midday, the steppe ahead darkened not with smoke, but with shadow. An army moved there, vast and deliberate. Ashtamga banners rose above the haze, marked with blackened suns and broken wings. At their front rode warriors, clad in scorched armor, faces painted with ash and blood. Fires burned even as they advanced, grass turning to blackened lines beneath their hooves. At the center of the host stood a towering figure, armor glowing faintly red, as if heat lived beneath the metal. "Their war chief," the old man said. "Karazar, Firesworn." The golden eagle shrieked. The sun steel blazed through its wrappings, light tearing free. Arslan felt the steppe hold its breath. The war had found him. Chapter 4: Fire Beneath the Blackened Sun. The Ashtamga army did not charge. They advanced like an approaching burn, slow, inevitable, consuming the steppe one measured breath at a time. Lines of scorched earth spread outward from their path, grass collapsing into ash even before hooves touched it. Heat shimmered above their ranks, bending the air into wavering mirrors. Arslan felt it in his bones. The sunsteel responded with a low, constant pulse, as if warning him that fire recognized its own kin. Aghanim reined in sharply behind a low ridge. "We cannot outrun them now," she said, "not with the wind unsettled." The old man planted his staff into the earth. The chimes rattled once, then stilled. "Kyrgyz does not hunt prey," he said. "He claims territory. If he has come this far, he means to make an example." Arslan swallowed. "Of me?" "Yes," Aghanim replied, without hesitation. "And of anyone who stands with you." She turned to the younger rider. "Kulan, ride south. Warn the river clans. Tell them fire walks openly again." Kulan hesitated only a heartbeat before nodding and spurring his horse away, vanishing into the rolling gold. The golden eagle descended, landing on the ridge beside them. Its feathers bristled, catching the light in sharp angles. It stared unblinking at the advancing host. "They see it," Aghanim murmured. "They will not wait until dusk." As if summoned by her words, a single rider broke from the Ashtamga lines and rode forward alone. His horse was massive, its mane braided with strips of blackened leather. The rider's armor glowed dull red, seams lit faintly like coals beneath stone. "Kyrgyz." He halted within shouting distance and raised his helm. His face was broad and scarred, beard braided, tight eyes reflecting firelight even in daylight. "Windkeeper," he called, voice deep and roughened by smoke. "You stand between me and what is owed." Aghanim rode forward to meet him, stopping just beyond reach. "The steppe owes you nothing, Kyrgyz. You take and call it destiny." He laughed, a sound like crackling wood. "Destiny is forged, not begged from the sky." His gaze slid past her, locking onto Arslan. The heat intensified, pressing like a hand against Arslan's chest. "The eagle chose poorly," Kyrgyz said. "A child cannot carry sunsteel." "The steel disagrees," Aghanim replied. Kyrgyz dismounted heavily, boots sinking into scorched earth. "Then let it be tested." He drew his weapon. It was not sunsteel, but it had been tempered in something unnatural. The blade glowed faintly orange, heat rolling off it in waves. Runes burned along its length, marks of binding and sacrifice. "Fire-bound iron," the old man whispered. He fed it blood. The Ashtamga army halted behind their war chief, forming a silent wall of flame-darkened armor. No horns sounded, no banners moved. They were waiting. "For what?" Arslan asked quietly. "For you to break," Aghanim said. Kyrgyz pointed his blade toward Arslan. "Come," he commanded. "Prove the eagle's judgment or burn with the rest of the old lies." Arslan's legs felt heavy, but the sunsteel tugged insistently, urging him forward. Heat and wind warred within him, neither fully under his control. "I won't fight you," Arslan said. Kyrgyz smiled, slow and cruel. "Fire does not ask permission." He slammed his blade into the ground. The earth erupted. Flames burst outward in a wide arc, racing across the grass toward the ridge. Aghanim shouted, grabbing Arslan and dragging him back as the fire licked over the ground where he had stood moments before. The golden eagle launched skyward, screaming, The wind answered violently, slamming down in a spiraling gust that tore flames from the grass and hurled them sideways. Fire and wind collided, twisting together into a roaring column that howled like a living thing. Arslan cried out, clutching the sunsteel as its heat spiked painfully. "Focus," Aghanim shouted. "Listen to the wind, don't fight it." The old man struck his staff against the ground repeatedly, chanting under his breath. The chimes rang wildly as the air thickened around them. Kyrgyz watched the chaos with approval. "Yes," he said. "Let the steppe witness," he charged. His speed defied his size, armor blazing brighter as he closed the distance. Aghanim met him head-on, blades flashing as she deflected his first strike. The impact sent a shockwave through the ground, knocking Arslan off his feet. They clashed again, wind against fire, steel against burning iron. Each blow scorched the air. Arslan scrambled upright, heart pounding. The sunsteel burned against his palm, desperate. He saw it then, threads in the air, barely visible, twisting around Kyrgyz. Currents of heat, spirals of flame, bound tightly to his movements. Fire followed rules. Wind could break them. Arslan stepped forward before he could think. "Arslan," Aghanim shouted. He raised the sunsteel knot in a strike, but in alignment with the wind's pull. He did not command it, he opened himself to it. The blade sang. A clear, piercing note rang across the battlefield, cutting through fire and fury alike. The runes along the steel ignited fully, blazing gold-white. The wind surged not outward, but inward, collapsing around Kyrgyz in a sudden vacuum. Flames tore free from his armor, ripping away in violent arcs. Kyrgyz staggered, roaring in rage. "What are you?" Arslan's voice shook, but held. "I listen." He brought the blade down not upon Kyrgyz, but into the ground between them. The impact sent a wave of force rippling outward. Fire was snuffed out instantly, flattened and scattered like embers in a storm. The Ashtamga lines reeled as the wind tore through them, banners shredding, riders struggling to remain mounted. Silence fell abrupt and absolute. Kyrgyz dropped to one knee, armor dimming, breath ragged. He stared at Arslan with something new in his eyes, not fear, recognition. "The steel has awakened fully," he said hoarsely. "Then this war was inevitable." He rose slowly and turned back toward his army. "Withdraw," he commanded. A murmur rippled through the Ashtamga ranks, but they obeyed. The fire dimmed, smoke thinning as the host pulled back, leaving behind a scarred stretch of earth and the echo of Niruan. Kyrgyz paused once more. "This is not finished, Windchild," he called. "Fire remembers." Then he was gone. Arslan collapsed to his knees as the sun steel dimmed, exhaustion crashing over him. Aghanim was beside him instantly, gripping his shoulders. "You held it," she said, awe threading her voice. "You didn't let it consume you." The golden eagle descended once more, landing before Arslan. Its gaze was fierce, approving. The old man exhaled shakily. "The steppe has seen," he said, "and it will speak of this." Arslan looked at the blackened earth, at the retreating army, at the endless sky above. "This was only the beginning," he said. Aghanim nodded. "Yes, and now the world knows your name." Chapter 5. The city that breathes the wind. The scars left by fire did not fade quickly. For 2 days, they rode through land marked by Kyrgyz's passage grass, reduced to brittle black lines, soil cracked like old bone. The wind moved differently here, hesitant, as though wary of stirring the ashes too deeply. Even the golden eagle flew higher than before, its shadow no longer gliding smoothly along the earth. Arslan felt the change most sharply at night. When he slept, the sunsteel whispered, not in words, but in pressure and heat, in the sense of something unfinished pulling at him from beneath the steppe. Each dream ended the same way. A vast circle of fabric towers, turning slowly under a screaming sky. On the third dawn, the horizon broke open. Canvas spires rose from the grass like pale sails caught mid-billow. Rings of towers encircled a central expanse where metal frameworks glinted beneath stretched hides. Streamers and prayer ribbons snapped constantly, even when the air was still. Wind chimes sang from every height, their tones overlapping into a ceaseless, shifting harmony. Arslan stared. A city, a living one, Aghanim replied. Cyrisial, the city of winds. As they approached, Arslan felt it. The air thickened, layered with currents moving in different directions at once. The wind here was not wild. It was cultivated. Guards met them at the outer ring riders, wearing light armor etched with flowing sigils, faces calm but alert. Their horses stood steady despite the restless air. Aghanim dismounted and touched her brow. "Keeper returning," she said. With the eagle chosen, murmurs rippled instantly through the guards. Several glanced upward as the golden eagle circled, then bowed without hesitation. They were escorted inward. The deeper they rode, the more complex the city became. Wind wheels turned atop towers, channeling air downward through latticed vents. Cloth bridges swayed gently between structures. Children ran barefoot along elevated paths, unafraid of the height or the constant motion beneath them. Arslan felt small and watched. At the heart of Cyrisial lay the Skywell, a vast, circular depression lined with polished stone and metal veins. Wind plunged into it from every direction, spiraling downward into unseen depths. The sound was immense, like a breath held forever. Figures waited at its edge. Elders in layered robes stood in a wide arc, faces lined by years of wind and decision. At their center stood a tall woman with hair the color of storm clouds, her posture rigid as drawn wire. Aghan bowed deeply. "High listener." The woman's eyes fixed on Arslan. "So," she said, "the wind finally breaks its silence." Her name was Turkin, High Listener of Cyrisial, the one whose duty was not to command the wind, but to interpret its will. "You bring fire into my city," Turkan continued. "And yet the wind shields you." Arslan felt the weight of every gaze. "I didn't ask for it." Turkin nodded once. "No one ever does." She gestured toward the skywell. "Step forward." Arslan hesitated. The sun steel warmed in response, steady but restrained. Aghanim placed a hand briefly on his shoulder. "This place will know the truth," she said. Whatever it is, he stepped to the edge. The wind roared upward instantly, wrapping around him, tugging at his clothes, his hair, his breath. He felt exposed, not physically, but inwardly, as though every doubt and fear were being lifted into the open air. Turkin raised her staff and struck the stone. "Wind of the endless sky," she intoned, voice carrying without strain. "You who remember every oath ever spoken, show us what you have chosen." The air plunged downward. Arslan cried out as the wind tore through him, not violently, but relentlessly. Memories surfaced unbidden. His mother singing by the salt river, the hunger of cold winters, the first time he'd heard stories of sunsteel and laughed. Then came visions not his own, battles long past, eagles falling from smoke-dark skies, sunsteel blades raised by men who listened only to their own ambition, the steppe burning again and again under different banners, different excuses. Arslan sank to his knees. I don't want this, he whispered into the roar. I don't want to be another reason the steppe burns. The wind shifted. It slowed, softened, then surged once more, but differently now. Images changed. He saw riders laying down weapons, tribes meeting beneath open skies, fires banked, not fed, a future not yet broken. The sun steel flared once, bright and clean. The wind withdrew. Silence fell over the skywell. Turkin lowered her staff slowly. Her expression had changed tightness, replaced by something like grim relief. He is not a conqueror, she said, nor a sacrifice. Murmurs rippled through the elders. He is a bearer, Turkin continued. One who carries the steel without letting it rule him. Rare, dangerous. Then why choose him? An elder demanded. Because the wind is tired of kings, Turkin replied sharply. And fire already has too many voices. She turned to Arslan. Sun steel will draw war, no matter what you do. The Ashtamga will return. The skybound will not stop seeking control. And the Sunforger priests, her jaw tightened. They are already moving. As if summoned by her words, a deep horn sounded from the city's outer ring. Once, urgent. A runner burst into the circle, breathless. Hi, listener. Southern Watch reports metal, banners, gold and red. Furnace sigils. The Sunforger priests, Aghanim cursed under her breath. They came faster than expected. Turkin's gaze hardened. They will demand custody. Claim ancient right. And if we refuse? Arslan asked. Turkan looked at him steadily. Then Cerizial becomes a battlefield. The skywell roared softly, as if in warning. Arslan clenched his fists. Then teach me, he said, before they arrive. Teach me to listen properly, to use this without destroying everything around me. The elders exchanged looks. Finally, Turkin nodded. Very well, you will enter the breath trials. Aghanim's eyes widened. Hi, listener. He has no choice, Turkin said, and neither do we. The wind rose again, restless, expectant. Beyond the city's outer rings, distant drums began to beat slow, heavy, metallic. The Sunforger priests were coming, and Cerizial drew a breath, preparing for the storm. Chapter 6: The Breath Trials of Cerizial. The city of winds sealed itself without walls. At Turkin's command, streamers were drawn tight, bridges unhooked and retracted, towers subtly reoriented so their vents faced outward. The wind changed direction in layers, forming invisible barriers that bent sound and sent away from the city's heart. Cerizial did not close, inhaled. Arslan was led downward. Stairs spiraled along the inner rim of the skywell, each step vibrating faintly beneath his feet. The roar of the wind deepened as they descended, shifting from a rush to a layered chorus-high keening currents above, slow, grinding breaths below. This place remembers everyone who has ever listened, Turkin said, walking ahead without looking back. And everyone who pretended to. At the bottom lay a circular chamber carved from bedrock, its walls veined with metal veins and etched sigils. At its center hovered a suspended ring of braided bronze and pale steel, the breath frame held aloft by converging currents. Aghanim stopped at the threshold. I cannot go further. Arslan turned to her. Will it change you? She finished. Yes, or it will break you. That is mercy. Here, the golden eagle settled on a ledge above, feathers ruffling as it fixed Arslan with an unwavering stare. Turkin gestured. Step into the frame, Arslan did. The air thickened immediately, pressing from all sides without touching. His ears rang, his breath shortened. First breath, Turkin said. Stillness. The wind cut out. Not faded, ceased. The sudden absence struck harder than the roar had. Arslan's lungs panicked, searching for movement that was no longer there. The sun still warmed at his side, seeking to answer the void. Do nothing, Turkon instructed. If you reach for power, the frame will reject you. Seconds stretched. Arslan focused on the feel of stone beneath his boots, the weight of his coat, the steady beat of his heart. He remembered mornings by the salt river, mist unmoving, the world holding its breath before day began. Air returned, soft, cautious. The frame glowed faintly. Accepted, Turkon said. Second, breath direction. The wind surged back, but unevenly. Currents pulled left and right, up and down, tugging at Arslan's balance. The chamber tilted in sensation, if not in truth. Panic flared. Choose a path, Turkon said. Not the strongest, the truest. Arslan closed his eyes. He felt the pull of the sunsteel hot, forward, demanding, and resisted it. Instead, he listened for the quietest current, a thin thread slipping between louder streams. He leaned into it. The turbulence eased, aligning around him. The ring steadied. Accepted, Turkon said again. Third, breath weight. Pressure descended like a mountain placed upon his chest. Arslan gasped as gravity itself seemed to intensify. Memories surged, every failure, every fear, every time he had been too small. Carry, Turkon said simply. The sunsteel burned, offering release. Arslan shook his head, teeth clenched. I'll carry, he rasped, but I won't become it. He imagined the steppe under snow, grass pressed flat but unbroken, enduring until spring. The pressure lifted. A distant cheer rose from somewhere above. Aghanim's voice cut through, fierce and proud. Turkon allowed herself a thin smile. Accepted. The frame dimmed. The chamber breathed out. You have passed the breath trials, Turkon said. Few do. Relief washed over Arslan, then vanished as a tremor ran through the stone. A horn sounded above, not the city's warning. Metal rang, heavy, deliberate. The priests, Turkon said. They begin. They ascended into a city transformed. Sunforger banners hung beyond the outer ring, gold and red, sigils of furnace and anvil blazing. Their ranks stood in ordered lines, armor polished, helms crowned with ritual crests. At their center rolled a massive construct of wheeled iron, a mobile forge, its vents glowing white. A tall figure stepped forward, robes layered with plates of etched brass. His face bore burn scars, arranged in ceremonial symmetry. High Listener, he called. By the covenant of ember and sky, we claim custody of the awakened steel. Turkon did not bow. The covenant binds listeners, not tyrants, murmurs rippled. The priest smiled thinly. Then we will take custody by right. The forge roared. Chains uncoiled, glowing hot, snaking forward like living things. The wind surged to meet them but hesitated, split by wards etched into the metal. Arslan stepped forward. No, Aghanim said sharply, grabbing his arm. He shook his head. They won't stop, the golden eagle screamed. Arslan drew the sunsteel not to strike, but to tune. He remembered the trials, stillness, direction, weight. He slowed his breath. He chose the quiet current. He carried the pressure without yielding. The blade sang low, controlled. The wind aligned. Chains faltered mid-air, glowing dimmer as their heat bled away. The forge's roar dropped to a strained howl. The priest's eyes widened. Impossible. It's not command, Arslan said, voice steady. It's agreement. The wind surged, not as a blast, but as a precise flow that wrapped the forge's vents, starving the fire. The glow faded to red, then to dark. Silence. The priest staggered back. You don't understand what you are refusing. I do, Arslan replied. I'm refusing to be owned. Turkin stepped forward. By ancient right, the city of winds stands neutral. Withdraw. The priest looked from Arslan to the golden eagle, then to the quieted forge. His jaw tightened. Withdraw, he snapped. The banners fell back. The forge was hauled away, inert and sullen. As dusk settled, Ceresial exhaled. Turkin faced Arslan. You have learned to listen under pressure. That will keep you alive. For how long? Arslan asked. She met his gaze. Long enough to choose what comes next. Above them, the golden eagle took wing, circling once then, pointing its path toward the far horizon. The wind followed. Chapter 7. The sky-bound schism. The wind did not return to stillness after the Sunforger priests withdrew. It stretched eastward, taut as a drawn line, pulling at banners, chimes, and breath alike. Turkin watched it with narrowed eyes, her staff resting heavily against the stone. The sky is divided, she said, and division never remains bloodless. By dawn, the city of winds was awake with preparation. Riders were dispatched in pairs. Towers adjusted their vanes toward the east. The skywell roared more unevenly than before, as if multiple currents were arguing over the same space. Arslan stood at the city's highest ring, the steppe spread before him in vast silence. The golden eagle perched beside him, feathers sleek, gaze fixed on the horizon where pale clouds gathered unnaturally fast. Aghanim joined him, armor newly strapped, her expression hard. Skybound riders crossed the eastern flats at night, she said. Not scouts, a host. Talgot, Arslan asked. Yes, she replied. And others who believe the wind must be directed, not listened to. Before Arslan could respond, horns sounded high and sharp, not Ashtamga fire calls, but the clear, cutting notes of the skybound. From the east, riders crested the hills in disciplined formation, cloaks streaming backward, banners marked with spiral sigils, split by iron bars. They did not burn the land, they pressed it. The grass flattened beneath their passage, bent unnaturally in a single direction, as if forced into obedience. The air grew cold, tight, compressed. Talgot rode at their center. He halted just beyond the city's outer ring and raised his hand. The host stopped instantly. Hi, listener, he called. The wind has spoken again. Turkin stepped forward, unbowed. The wind does not speak to those who shout over it. Talgot dismounted and approached alone. Helm tucked beneath his arm. His eyes found Arslan immediately. You survived the breath trials, he said. Few do. I didn't survive to be owned, Arslan replied. Talgot's mouth tightened. Then you misunderstand our intent. He gestured, and two riders advanced, unrolling a long strip of pale cloth inscribed with sigils. The skybound compact, Talgot said, an accord forged after the last Sun-Steel War. It grants the skybound authority to restrain any bearer whose existence threatens balance. Aghanim scoffed. Authority claimed, not granted. Talgot ignored her. You are already a convergence point. Fire seeks you. The priests seek you. Soon others will. If left free, you will fracture the steppe. I didn't start this, Arslan said. No, Talgot replied calmly, but you will finish it one way or another. The wind surged subtly, tightening around the city. Towers creaked as currents shifted against their intended flow. Turkin struck her staff against the stone. Ceresial will not surrender, the eagle. Then Seretial will be isolated, Talgot said, cut off from the guiding winds. You will suffocate beneath your own ideals. For the first time, fear flickered among the elders. Arslan felt the pressure mountainite heat like Karazar's fire, but a crushing certainty, as if the sky itself were being forced into a narrow channel. He stepped forward. If the wind must judge me, he said, voice steady, let it be where no city stands to suffer. Turkin turned sharply. No, Talgot raised a brow. You would come willingly. Yes, Arslan said, but not in chains, and not to your sky circle. The golden eagle cried once, sharp and commanding. The wind answered, shifting direction, pulling away from Seretial and stretching toward the open steppe beyond the city. Arslan understood. There is another place, he said, a wind scar older than your compact. Let the sky decide there. Talgot studied him for a long moment. At last, he nodded. The plain of broken currents. Aghanim grabbed Arslan's arm that placed Tyr's riders apart. Then it will tear lies apart too, Arslan replied. By midday they rode. No city followed, only witnesses. Talgot's host rode to the east. Aghanim and a small white gale contingent rode with Arslan. The golden eagle circled above, higher than ever before. The land changed as they approached the plain. The wind twisted unpredictably, reversing direction without warning. Dust lifted in spirals, then dropped suddenly. Sound bent and scattered. At the center of the plain lay a shallow depression where the grass grew in tangled, opposing patterns. Talgot dismounted first. Here, he said, let the wind decide whether you are guided or dangerous. The skybound formed a wide ring. The white gale riders mirrored them opposite. Tension crackled, sharp as frost. Arslan stepped into the depression. Immediately, the sunsteel grew heavy. Currents collided around him, hot and cold, fast and slowish, tugging for dominance. He remembered the trials, stillness, direction, weight. But this was different. This wind did not want harmony. It wanted resolution. Talgot raised his arms. Wind of the endless sky, he intoned. Judge the bearer. The skybound riders joined him, voices merging into a controlled chant. The wind began to compress, spiraling inward, toward Arslan, with increasing force. Aghanim shouted, they're binding it. Arslan felt the pressure spike. The blade burned, begging to be unleashed. He almost gave in. Then he heard it, not the roar of wind, but a single, clear beat beneath it. Like wings cutting air, the golden eagle descended. It landed at the edge of the depression, wings spread wide. Its cry shattered the chant, slicing through layered currents like a blade through cloth. The wind exploded outward. Skybound riders were thrown from their feet. White gale horses screamed and reared. Dust and grass tore free, spiraling skyward. At the center, Arslan stood unmoved. He raised the sunsteel not as weapon, but as anchor. I am not here to be judged by factions, he said, voice carrying unnaturally far, only by the sky that chose me. The wind collapsed inward once more, but this time it aligned. Currents braided around Arslan, forming a single, coherent flow that lifted him slightly from the ground. The blade blazed gold-white runes, fully awakened. Talgot stared, stunned. This is impossible. No, Turkin's voice carried from afar. This is what you forgot. The wind surged one final time, then fell silent. Arslan descended gently to the ground. When the dust settled, the skybound compact lay torn in half at Talgot's feet. The schism was complete. Talgot sank to one knee. breathing hard. "The skybound will fracture," he said quietly. "Some will follow you, others will hunt you." Arslan nodded. "I know." The golden eagle took wing again, circling once, then flying westward, toward lands untouched by fire or compact. Aghanim joined Arslan's side. "The steppe just changed," she said. Arslan looked after the eagle, heart heavy but clear. "Then we move with it." Chapter 8. The March of Fractured Banners. The steppe did not celebrate the schism, it absorbed it. As Arslan and his small contingent followed the golden eagle westward, signs of fracture emerged everywhere. Banners once raised together now traveled in opposing directions. Camps stood abandoned, fire pits cold, as riders chose sides or fled them. The wind carried arguments, not voices, but tensions, sudden gusts that cut off conversation, lulls that pressed heavy and uncertain. Even the horses seemed restless, snorting and stamping as if the ground beneath them could no longer be trusted. "They will not let you vanish," Aghanim said on the second night. "Neither the skybound loyalists nor the fire clans." Arslan stared into the low flames. "I don't want followers." "You will have them anyway," she replied. "Some follow storms, others follow shelter." By the third day, they found the first. A small group approached from the north, 6 riders, bearing no banners, armor mismatched, eyes wary. At their head rode a man with skybound markings, partially scraped away. "We're not here to bind you," he said quickly, dismounting and kneeling. "We left before Talgot could name us traitors." Behind him, another rider stepped forward, her armor scorched, Ashtamga insignia broken and blackened. "We left fire," she said simply. "It consumes too much." Arslan felt the sun steel sternot in warning, but in acknowledgement. Aghanim watched closely. "If you ride with him," she said to them, "you ride without certainty, without promise of victory." The man nodded. "We ride because the wind stopped lying to us." By sunset, the group had doubled. They did not march as an army. They moved like a scattered flock, loose, flexible, ununiformed. No single banner flew above them, only strips of cloth tied to lances in different colors and styles. Fractured banners. On the 5th day, smoke appeared a headknot, the heavy burn of Ashtanga, but the thin lines of controlled fires, camps, many of them, too many to be coincidence. Aghanim rode forward with Arslan, scanning the horizon. "River clans," she said, "and traders." And she stopped. Metal glinted among the tents. "Sunforger constructs. They're building," she whispered. The golden eagle circled low, uneasy. They approached cautiously. The camp sprawled along a dried riverbed, hundreds strong. Priests moved among portable furnaces, feeding them measured fuel. Riders stood guard, armor polished, expressions cold. At the center rose a tall framework of metal and stone, half-built anchor spire, its base etched with sigils meant to bind wind and heat alike. Turkin's warning echoed in Arslan's mind. Fire already has too many voices. A priest stepped forward as they approached, hands raised. "We do not seek battle," he said, "only completion." Aghanim dismounted. "Completion of what?" The priest gestured to the spire, a stabilizing anchor. "The schism has made the wind volatile. Trade routes collapse, crops fail. We offer order by chaining the sky," Arslan said. The priest's eyes flicked to the sunsteel. "By partnering with it," murmurs spread through the fractured riders behind Arslan. "You cannot force balance," Arslan said. "You can only listen for it. And while you listen," the priest countered, "people starve." The words struck hard. Arslan hesitated. The wind shifted uneasily. The golden eagle screamed. From the south came horns deep, brutal. Ashtamga. Smoke rose, thick and fast, racing toward the camp. Chaos erupted instantly. Priests shouted orders. Riders scrambled. The half-built spire glowed as furnaces flared in panic. Kyrgyz rode at the head of the fire host, armor blazing brighter than before. "You build chains," he roared, "and call it peace." Flames surged toward the camp. Arslan reacted without thinking. He ran, not away, but toward the spire. Aghanim shouted his name, but the wind surged, clearing his path. The sunsteel burned fiercely as he placed his hands against the cold metal framework. "Listen," he whispered, "not to the spire, but through it." The wind howled. Currents twisted violently as fire and heat collided with binding sigils. The spire screamed metal shrieking as its structure warped under forces it was never meant to hold. Kyrgyz saw him and laughed. "Break it, Windchild. Let the sky be wild." Arslan shook his head. No, he changed the flow. Instead of resisting the bindings, he redirected the wind through them, loosening, unraveling, turning rigid channels into open paths. The sigils flared, then cracked. The spire collapsed, not in explosion, but in surrender, folding inward as the wind reclaimed itself. Fire met open air. The resulting gust tore flames upward and away, scattering them harmlessly across the steppe in fading arcs of light. Silence fell. Ashtamga riders reined in, stunned. The priests stared at the ruined spire, faces pale. Kyrgyz's laughter died. He regarded Arslan with narrowed eyes. "You deny fire its victory. I deny it its excuse," Arslan replied. Kyrgyz spat into the dust. "Then we will meet again, Windbearer. When the steppe demands burning." He turned, signaling retreat. As the fire host withdrew, the camp exhaled shakily. The priest bowed his head. "You saved us." Arslan looked at the broken spire. "I showed you a different way." Night fell heavy and uncertain. Around new fires, fractured riders sat together. Former skybound, former Ashtamga, traders, riverfolk. No chants were spoken, no oaths sworn, only listening. Aghanim sat beside Arslan, exhaustion etched deep. "You're building something whether you want to or not." He nodded slowly. "Not a faction. Then what?" Arslan looked up at the stars, at the golden eagle circling high above. "A passage," he said, "through the storm." Chapter 9. Beneath the sun-steel sky, the steppe changed after the anchor spire fell. Not visibly at first. The grass still rolled like a golden sea, the sky still stretched without mercy or border. But the wind grew more complexless, predictable, yet strangely purposeful, as though it were testing new paths through old habits. They traveled westward for days, the fractured host swelling and thinning as riders joined and departed. No banners led them, no horns announced their passing. They moved by intuition and rumor, following the golden eagle's distant arcs across the sky. At night, Arslan dreamed of metal beneath the earth. Sun-steel veins pulsed faintly under the steppe, not awakening fully, but listening, responding to his presence like a low echo returning from deep stone. Aghanim noticed his restlessness. "You hear it now even when awake," she said one evening, as they camped beside a shallow ravine. Arslan nodded. "It's not calling me, it's waiting." "For what?" "For a choice I haven't made yet." Before she could respond, the wind shifted sharply, carrying with it the scent of cold water and stone. The golden eagle descended, landing on a nearby rock, feathers tight against its body. Arslan stood. "We're close." "To what?" Aghanim asked. He pointed ahead, an old place. They found it at dawn. A vast basin opened before them, ringed by jagged stone ridges, bleached white by sun and time. At its center lay something unnatural, a wide expanse of smooth, dark metal half buried in the earth, its surface etched with ancient runes worn nearly flat. Sunsteel, not a blade, a field. The air above it shimmered constantly, wind sliding across its surface in slow, circular patterns. No grass grew near it. The ground felt warm underfoot despite the cool morning. The fractured riders halted instinctively, awe and unease spreading in equal measure. The Sunforger legends spoke of this. One murmured, "The sky anvil." Aghanim frowned. "A forge without fire." Arslan stepped closer. The sun steel at his side resonated deeply, vibrating against his ribs. Images surged, this place alive with activity long ago. Figures shaping metal with wind instead of flame. Eagles circling overhead as steel sang beneath open skies. Turkin's voice echoed in memory. "Fire already has too many voices." This was how it was meant to be, Arslan whispered. The wind intensified suddenly, whipping dust into spirals. From the northern ridge came movement, fast, disciplined, unmistakable. Skybound riders, but not Talget's core. Their banners were torn, sigils altered. Some bore fresh marking spirals, broken deliberately, iron bars removed. A man rode forward alone, helm off, hair bound tight against the wind. His face was familiar. "Talget Aghanim?" asked sharply. He shook his head. "No, Boran, once skybound." He dismounted and approached slowly, eyes never leaving Arslan. "Word spreads fast when compacts break. Some of us followed you. Others," he glanced back, as more riders crested the ridge, bearing unbroken, skybound insignia. "Hunt you." The wind surged violently as the second group advanced, chanting in unison. Their leader raised a staff etched with binding runes, driving it into the ground. "The bearer destabilizes the sky," he declared. "By order of the remaining compact, he will be restrained." Currents compressed instantly, pressing inward toward the sky anvil. The metal beneath Arslan's feet grew hot. "They're using the anvil to amplify," Boran shouted. "They'll force the wind into obedience." Arslan felt it, the skybound chant, trying to bend the currents, using ancient runes stripped of their original balance. Pain flared through him as the sun steel responded, torn between alignment and resistance. Aghanim drew her blades. "Give the word." Arslan raised a hand. "No." He stepped onto the center of the sky. The moment his boots touched the deepest etchings, the wind collapsed inward, then erupted upward in a towering column. The golden eagle screamed, circling low. The skybound chant faltered. Arslan planted the sunsteel point down into the metal field. "I won't let you turn this place into a cage," he said, voice carrying through the gale. "It was never meant for control." The opposing leader snarled. "You don't understand what you stand on." "I do," Arslan replied, "because it listens." He closed his eyes. Instead of pushing back, he opened the flow, letting wind pass freely through the etched channels, restoring their original purpose. The sky anvil glowed softly, runes re-illuminating in patterns older than the compact. The compressed currents unraveled. Skybound riders staggered as the wind slipped from their grasp, no longer bound to their chant. The staff cracked, its runes extinguished. Silence followed, deep and resonant. Boran dropped to one knee. "The anvil recognizes you." Arslan pulled the blade free. The metal field dimmed, returning to stillness. The opposing skybound leader stared in disbelief. You would unmake centuries of discipline. I would unmake fear, masquerading as order, Arslan said. The leader hesitated, then turned away sharply, signaling retreat. His riders followed, banners snapping angrily as they vanished into the ridges. Those who remained fractured skybound, riverfolk, former fire clans, stood quietly. Aghanim exhaled. You just claimed the most dangerous relic on the steppe. Arslan shook his head. I refused it. He looked around the basin. This place doesn't belong to me, or to any faction. It belongs to the sky. Borin rose. Then what happens now? The wind shifted gently, flowing westward again. Arslan followed it with his gaze. Now we move before someone else decides to own this too. As they departed the Skyenvel, the golden eagle soared high above them, its cry echoing across the basin. Far to the west, storm clouds gathered, dark, heavy, deliberate. Fire, wind, and steel were converging once more, and the steppe was running out of patience. Chapter 10. When the steppe refuses to burn, the storm did not break as storms usually did. It did not rush in with thunder or lightning. Instead, it spread slowly, a vast darkening of the western sky that advanced like a thought finally made certain. The air grew heavy, pressing low against the grass, flattening the steppe into uneasy silence. Even the wind hesitated. Arslan felt the change before clouds fully gathered. The sun steel at his side grew cool for the first time since its awakening, as if bracing itself. The golden eagle flew lower now, its circling tighter, more deliberate. Aghanim rode close. This isn't weather, she said. No, Arslan replied. It's convergence. By the time they reached the open plains west of the Skyenvel basin, the fractured host had grown to nearly 200 riders. They moved cautiously, sensing what approached. No one sang, no one argued. The steppe seemed to listen along with them. At dusk, they saw it. 3 forces, approaching from different directions. From the south came the Ashtanga, banners scorched and reforged. Kyrgyz riding at their head, armor glowing like banked coals. Fire flickered along their path, not as uncontrolled burn, but as disciplined threat. From the east advanced the skybound loyalists, fewer than before, but more rigid, their formations sharp, chanting under breath as they shaped the wind into narrow, obedient channels. From the north rolled the Sunforger priests, furnaces mounted on wheeled frames, constructs humming as heat and metal answered ancient commands. Fire, wind, steel, all facing the fractured riders, and the lone bearer standing among them. They've chosen a killing ground, Aghanim said quietly. The golden eagle descended, landing before Arslan. Its gaze was unwavering, heavy with finality. There will be no retreat, the old man said from behind them. The steppe itself has drawn the line. Arslan dismounted and stepped forward, alone. The 3 forces halted, forming a vast arc around the open plain. No one attacked. They waited. Kyrgyz rode forward first. Enough running, Windbearer, he called. Let fire decide what survives. The skybound leader stepped forward next. Order must be restored. The wind cannot remain ungoverned. The high Sunforger raised his staff last. Sunsteel belongs to the forge. To deny that is to deny history. Arslan listened, then he shook his head. All of you are listening to echoes, he said. His voice carried farther than it should have, lifted by a wind that no longer argued. Fire remembers conquest. Wind remembers control. Steel remembers obedience. He raised the sunsteel blade, holding it flat, not threatening, but the steppe remembers endurance. The clouds above churned slowly. Arslan planted the blade point down into the earth. The ground did not crack. It answered. A deep vibration spread outward, not violent, but firm. The grass flattened in concentric rings, then rose again, unburned. The wind gathered not into channels or storms, but into a broad, steady flow that passed through all three armies equally. Kyrgyz's flames dimmed, skybound chants faltered, sunforger furnaces stuttered, heat bleeding away. "This is impossible," the high sunforger whispered. Arslan closed his eyes. He did not command. He invited. He remembered the breath trials, stillness, direction, weight. He carried the weight of every faction's fear, every justification for violence, and let it pass through him into the earth. The storm above broke not in fire or lightning, but in rain. Heavy, sudden, relentless, flames hissed and died. Chanting dissolved into coughing. Metal cooled rapidly, steaming as rain struck heated surfaces. The steppe drank deeply. Kyrgyz roared in fury and drove his blade into the ground, trying to reignite the fire. Nothing answered him. The skybound leader fell to one knee as the wind slipped from his grasp, no longer willing to be narrowed. The sunforger constructs went dark, their runes fading under the soaking sky. Silence fell, broken only by rain. Arslan opened his eyes. "I will not rule you," he said, addressing all three forces. "I will not bind you, and I will not be your weapon." He pulled the sun steel free, but this land will not burn again for old arguments. The golden eagle cried once, loud and final. Something shifted, subtle but irreversible. Kyrgyz stared at the extinguished ground, then laughed bitterly. "The steppe refuses us," he said. He turned his horse, "Then fire will wait." The Ashtamga withdrew, banners dragging through mud. The skybound loyalists followed, formations broken, chants abandoned. The sunforger priests lingered longest, staring at the cooled blade in Arslan's hand. At last, the high sunforger bowed stiffly. "History will remember this," he said. "I hope it learns," Arslan replied. As the forces dispersed, the storm eased into a gentle rain. The fractured riders stood quietly, soaked and stunned. Aghanim approached Arslan, rain streaking her face. "You just ended a war before it began." He shook his head. "I delayed it." She smiled faintly. "Sometimes that's enough." The golden eagle rose, flying higher than ever before, vanishing briefly into thinning clouds. Arslan watched it go, heart heavy and calm at once. The steppe had spoken, and for the first time in generations, fire had listened. Chapter 11. The city that breathes the wind. The rain ended before dawn. Not gradually, but decisively, as though the steppe had said all it needed to say. Clouds thinned into long pale veils, drifting eastward, leaving the air washed and sharp. The grass stood taller, greener, carrying the quiet scent of renewal. The fractured riders broke camp in silence. They no longer moved like fugitives or rebels. Something subtle had changed in their posture, not triumph, but alignment. They rode with the wind rather than against it. Arslan felt it too. The sun steel no longer pulsed constantly. It rested now, heavy but calm, like a tool returned to its rightful place after long misuse. The golden eagle flew far ahead, no longer circling protectively, but guiding. By mid-morning, the horizon shifted. Where the steppe should have stretched unbroken, the land rose gently into terraces, shaped by neither river nor blade. Pale stone emerged from the grass, curved and layered, forming structures that seemed grown rather than built. A city. but not one of walls or towers. The Wind City, Boran whispered behind Arslan. I thought it was a legend. They approached slowly. The city revealed itself in breath and motion. Wide arches funneled air through stone corridors. Sloped dwellings redirected wind downward into courtyards. Hanging chimes of bone and bronze sang softly as currents passed, creating an ever-changing harmony. No gates barred entry. No guards challenged them. Only wind. As they entered, Arslan felt pressure change around him, not constricting, but attentive. The air thickened slightly, as if the city itself were inhaling. Figures emerged from the structures, men and women dressed in pale fabrics, their movements fluid, eyes alert. None carried visible weapons. An elder stepped forward, hair silver white, eyes clear and sharp. You arrive late, she said calmly. Arslan inclined his head. We followed the wind. She smiled faintly. So few still do. Aghanim frowned. You knew we were coming. We know when the step shifts, the elder replied, and it shifted loudly. She turned her gaze to Arslan's blade. The bearer stands where he should not have had to stand. Then this city still listens, Arslan said. Always, the elder replied. We are the Akin of breathkeepers of unbound wind. They were led deeper into the city. Arslan noticed how sound behaved strangely. Here voices carried clearly, without echo. Footsteps softened, as if the air itself moderated intent. At the city's heart lay a vast open chamber, roofless, circular. The floor was etched with patterns similar to the sky anvil's runes, but gentler, flowing. The breath basin, the elder said. Here, the wind is not shaped. It is understood. Arslan stepped into the center. Immediately, memories surged, not imposed, but offered. He saw fragments of the past, early tribes, learning to read weather by listening rather than forcing. Eagles chosen as companions rather than tools. Sunsteel first discovered and deliberately left untouched. We refused the blade, the elder said quietly. Others did not. Aghanim crossed her arms, and you hid. We endured, the elder corrected. That is different. Arslan knelt, placing the sunsteel flat across his palms. I don't want this. The elder studied him carefully. No bearer ever has. That is why they are chosen. She gestured, and the air shifted. From the edges of the chamber, figures stepped forward. Tea elders, wind readers, eagle tamers. They formed a wide circle. The old balance is broken, the elder said. Fire seeks dominion. Steel seeks ownership. Wind seeks release. And the step? Arslan asked. The elder's voice softened. The step seeks continuity. She raised a hand, and the wind rose gently, lifting the sunsteel from Arslan's palms. It hovered, rotating slowly. You stand at the final threshold, she said. Not of war, but of inheritance. Arslan felt weight press inward, not from the air, but from choice. What inheritance? He asked. The end of bearers, the elder replied. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Aghanim stepped forward sharply. Explain. For generations, Sunsteel has required a singular will, the elder said. A focal point, a bearer. That concentration invites conquest. She looked at Arslan. But the step does not survive through singularity. It survives through spread. The hovering blade began to change. Fine lines appeared along its surface, branching like veins. We can unmake it, the elder said. Not destroy, but divide. Arslan's breath caught. You want to break the sunsteel into many voices, she replied. No single weapon, no single bearer. The golden eagle descended suddenly, landing at the basin's edge. Its cry was not warning but affirmation. Arslan closed his eyes. He thought of the sky anvil, of the storm that refused fire, of factions clinging to certainty. He thought of a future where someone else would be forced to carry this burden if he did not act. "Do it," he said. The wind surged, not violently, but purposefully. The sunsteel fractured with a sound like distant bells, splitting into multiple smaller blades, shards, and sigils, each carried gently to the waiting Akin. The pressure vanished. Arslan gasped, knees buckling, as the weight lifted from his chest. The elder caught his arm. "It is done." Aghanim stared at the divided steel, then at Arslan. "You're free." "No," he said slowly. "I'm responsible, just not alone." The elder inclined her head. That is how the steppe endures. Outside, the wind city exhaled, chimes ringing in new patterns. Far away, across the steppe, factions would feel it, the absence, the silence where a singular power once stood. The age of the bearer was ending, and the age of shared breath.
Chapter 12. The wind that remains dawn arrived quietly over the wind city. No horns announced it, no banners rose. Light simply touched stone and grass, and the city breathed it in. Currents flowed through arches and courtyards, carrying warmth into shaded places, lifting chimes into soft, unhurried song. Arslan stood alone at the city's eastern edge, where the terraces fell away into the open steppe. For the first time since the Golden Eagle had chosen him, the sky felt vast, again not heavy with expectation, not narrowed by destiny, just sky. Behind him, the city stirred. The Akin moved with deliberate calm, distributing the divided sun-steel pieces. None were large enough to dominate. None were shaped as weapons alone. Some were forged into wind guides, others into talismans, some embedded into the city itself, anchors of memory rather than force. Aghanim joined him, wrapping her cloak tighter against the morning air. "You look lighter," she said. "I feel unfinished," Arslan replied. She smiled faintly. "That's the difference." The Golden Eagle descended from a high spiral, landing on a stone outcrop nearby. Its feathers caught the dawn, gold-edged with shadow. It regarded Arslan steadily, not as master or charge, but as equal. "You're leaving," Aghanim said, not asking. "Yes, where?" Arslan looked west, then north, then back, across the endless steppe. Wherever the wind is ignored, they returned to the breath basin one last time. The elders gathered, forming a wide circle as before, but the pressure that once filled the space was gone. The air moved freely, unconcerned with ceremony. "The factions will feel the change," the elder said. "Some already do." As if summoned by her words, riders arrived at the city's outer terraces. First came Boran, dismounted, helm carried respectfully at his side. "The skybound are dissolving," he said plainly, "not collapsing, letting go. Some refuse. Others are listening for the first time." Kyrgyz did not appear in person, but a single Ashtamga messenger arrived, bearing no flame. "Fire no longer answers command," the message said. "Only need." Even the Sunforger priests sent word, not apology, not threat, but acknowledgement. Their furnaces would be reworked. Their steel would no longer sing alone. The elder nodded. "Balance never arrives loudly." Arslan stepped forward. "It won't hold if it belongs only to this city." "It doesn't," she replied. "That is why you must go." The Golden Eagle cried once, sharp and clear. Arslan bowed deeply to the elders, to the city, to the steppe itself. Then he turned away, walking down the terraces and back into open land. Aghanim followed him to the edge of the city's reach. "You don't need me," he said gently. She shook her head. That's why I'm coming." They rode together as the wind city receded behind them, its stone blending once more with grass and sky, until it seemed it had never existed at all. Days passed. They encountered tribes rebuilding without banners, riders practicing with eagles, not as weapons, but companions, fires kept small and shared. Not peace never, peace but restraint. At a river crossing, they found children listening to the wind through hollow reeds, learning direction instead of dominance. Far to the south, smoke rose not from conquest, but from controlled burn, the land allowed to renew. One evening, as the sun bled low across the horizon, Arslan stopped. The golden eagle descended, landing before him one final time. Its eyes held no command now, only reflection. "You're staying," Arslan said quietly. The eagle tilted its head, then spread its wings. The wind rose not to lift Arslan, not to guide but to carry the eagle upward. It climbed higher than Arslan had ever seen, until it became a moving star against the darkening sky, then vanished entirely. Aghanim rested a hand on his shoulder. "You were never meant to keep it." "I know," he said. "I was meant to let it go." They camped beneath open sky that night. No visions came. No metal stirred beneath the earth. The wind passed through grass and fire alike, indifferent and enduring. In the days that followed, stories would spread, not of a conqueror, not of a king, but of a moment when the steppe refused to burn, when steel learned to listen, when the wind was shared again. No single name would hold the tale. That Arslan knew was the point. The steppe did not need heroes. It needed continuity. And as long as the wind remained free, it would endure.